Welcome to this video, a new part of the Endgame strategy series. This video shows a game between the white player Svetozar Gligoric and black playing Vasily Smyslov. Two well-known players. Gligoric at the time, we are talking about 1953. It's from the famous Zurich Candidates Tournament, this game. At the time, the top player of then Yugoslavia, and he stayed the top player of Yugoslavia for a really long time. And Smyslov, of course, we are talking about 1953. Not yet world champion, but the world champion in the making. He got the title some years later from Botvinnik. In this game, played in the Candidates Tournament, we start our analysis on move 20. I skipped the opening moves. They traded quite a number of pieces, and we come to this position where a piece count and pawn count gives the result that black is a pawn up. White has lost a pawn with some little tactic earlier on, and now we have an end game. Two rooks each and a knight, and black with his extra pawn should definitely win this endgame. But how exactly to proceed? Black should be very wary of counterplay ideas from white. If you have extra material, you should try to limit the opponent's possibilities as much as possible and try to use your extra material to good effect, but without bungling or giving up any positional ground. Black here should think of a step-by-step plan to improve his position and finally to make something out of his extra pawn. It is black to move, and what is the first step here? A defining factor of the position is of course the d-file, the open d-file, where white is somewhat quicker. He's got the rook on d2 already and is ready to play rook a to d1, which would control the d-file very reliably. Black to move has clearly one best move, and this is rook f d8. The first step here should be to trade one pair of rooks. If you trade one pair of rooks, you have a very clear follow-up. What you need to do is, after rook d1, which is very logical, takes, what you need to do is here to make sure that white cannot do anything threatening on the d-file. The critical square here is of course d7, the 7th rank. You should never ever allow white to get there and get counterplay with the rook. Black has a very easy setup to achieve that, and what he does is using the king. A very common principle, of course, in the endgame is that with the king not being under immediate danger in most cases, you should use the king, make it a useful piece. And here black can do that with king f8 to e7. That's a very logical and rewarding mini plan that black has. One point of the rook trade is, if you look at this from the get-go, one point of the rook trade is to make this possible, this king activation, as soon as possible. If we do it in another way, I mean, just what else is there? Rook e8 or something. White will take the d-file, and it's not so clear how we proceed. We can put the king on e7, but at the end of it, we can never move the knight due to rook d7. So this does not make much sense. It's just much more logical to get the rooks traded and therefore allow a quick activation of the king. King e7, or king f8 first, f3, king f7. F3 is designed to actually allow this knight to move. King f2. White also wants to centralize his king. For white, it's very difficult to do anything. You have 3 against 2 on the queen side, so one pawn more on the white side, but those pawns are not able to really advance, as black has this rook on c8, which always has a look at the c4 pawn. So b4 is never possible as c4 hangs. Very difficult for white to do anything active. But on the other hand, what should black do? Yeah, if we look at the pawn distribution, we see that black has 5 pawns, or those 5, against 3 on the king side. So the material advantage is on the king side. And you should normally play on the side on that you are stronger, which means black really should do something on the king side. And he does so right away. h5. This is a good move. It gains space. It prepares a further advance, or it can be, the follow-up can be a further advance by, let's say, g5. And after which you have a good choice with g4 or h4. h5 also makes sure that white never plays g4. g4 wasn't a very dangerous move, but anyway, we limit white's possibilities considerably and just improve our position without giving any ground. King e3 and g5. Yeah, now black has advanced his king side. But how do we proceed? One idea is to just play h4. h4 has a dual purpose. If we get in h4, if we just say white does a nothing move, he plays rook h2, but let's say white does nothing, which is not so easy to do really, maybe rook d1, then an idea can be to just go h4. The idea is that we get a pass pawn, this is the first idea, and after the capture, which is pretty much mandatory as g3 hangs and you don't want to give black a protected pass pawn, after this we have a natural follow-up with the knight jumping to f4. White will definitely want to take, and now we have the pass pawn. Yeah, let's say rook h1, rook h8. This pawn is also supported from the back by the rook, the ideal setup to support a passer. A further plan can be the move of this knight, let's say to d7, and then go f5, knight f6, renewing pressure on e4. This threat of h4 tempted white to play rook h2. Well, tempted is the wrong word, but yeah, he felt obliged to do that. Now, what should black do? h4 is not that easy to play, and one move that certainly can be played is rook h8, intending to play h4. However, Smyslov played differently. He played rook d8. This is one of those little moves that just improve the position a little bit, and they ask white, okay, what are you going to do? What's your idea? It's a little bit of a waiting move that improves our position without giving anything away. White now went rook h1. And here we come to an interesting moment. Black definitely could play another little improving move, or he could switch back to the idea to play h5, h4 with a pass pawn. However, Smyslov now played something entirely different, and as it turns out, his plan is very, very effective and very useful to remember. He didn't go for h4 at all, but he went g4. Yeah, this is in fact a very strong move. What's the idea? Yeah, the idea is that black would like to create a second weakness in white's position. The first weakness, if you want, is the pawn deficit. And what you want in addition, you want something to attack on the board. And black has recognized that after g4, he will remove or force the pawn to move on f3. If this pawn however moves or takes on g4, as it happens in the game, if this pawn moves, then the e4 pawn all of a sudden is requiring protection. The knight on f6 then is pressurizing this, and this can also be supported by a possible rook d4 at the right moment. Yeah, white cannot really play f4. If we look at this quickly, black will take.
Check.
And after g takes, we can even start to march the pawns. Yeah, this is too much, too connected. Pass pawns. White cannot even approach with the king due to
check.
Rook d3. So you cannot play f4, and yeah, letting him take on f3 is also not a great option. So white captured himself. Knight takes g4, check.
Check.
Yeah, it's better to take with the knight than to take with the pawn, because the pawn on g3 is easier to attack on g3 with the pawn being on h5. For instance, a move like rook g8 attacks the pawn, which is not possible when there is a pawn on g4. Knight takes g4 with check. King e2 played. Yeah, of course, now h5 is hanging and we don't have anything immediately. So black just retreated back to f6. Now we see that white has two pawn weaknesses, e4 and g3. Black, on the other hand, only has h5 to worry about. And this at the moment is securely defended. White went king e3 and rook d4. Yeah, just activating this rook as much as possible. The pressure now on e4 means that white cannot move the knight on c3, which could be a source of counterplay with knight b5, for example. White played rook f1. He really does not have much to do. He could have played rook, yeah, where else actually? Rook h4, rook h3, those kind of moves. They don't really help much. Yeah, black played
check.
Knight g4 check, using the fact that at the moment the h-pawn is undefended to play now, and this is an interesting moment, he now played king f8. Yeah, why king f8? It's simply the fact that the king on e7, while not being badly placed, is not serving any special purpose there anymore at the moment. Notice that at the beginning we went there to occupy the central post controlling d6 and d7 when white still had the d file. But white now does not have the d file anymore. This is not relevant, therefore, and the king has nothing to do on e7. So what is Smyslov doing? He's regrouping the king to here, and this is of course a huge improvement. If you have the king over here, you have lended support to h5 and you support a further advance of the pawns. Here is the wing where black has the two extra pawns. Ultimately you want to advance them. So the king is simply improved now with king f8, rook f3 and king g7. Yeah, white now tried rook d3, intending a rook trade. Yeah, how should black react? A very important moment now, as it is all the time when there are trades possible. Of course, black here cannot avoid the trade anymore, and in general we don't mind trading that much because we are material up, but we still have to check how to exactly conduct this trade. Should we take ourselves on d3 or should we let white take? Yeah, if we look at the structure, a white capture on d4 gives us a pass pawn on d4, and it also gets rid of our double pawn. So it's in fact much more desirable to have him take on d4 than us taking on d3. This means that black basically can now play a free move, like a king move. No? The king advance was our idea. However, in this concrete position, we still have to calculate. If we go to g6, then white can take, and play knight b5, and all of a sudden there's a double attack, and we lose some material back. This is not really necessary. We can easily play without this hassle, and at the starting position start with king f6. If white now trades, and this happened in the game, it's a totally different story, as we will see. Yeah, white did trade, but you can argue that this doesn't help him much. But well, other moves don't as well. Like rook f3 check, you just go to g6 and continue from there. So I understand that Gligoric was fed up with this and took on d4. Yeah, he took on d4. E takes d4. Knight b5. And now the big difference, it gets clear from f6, the king can go to e5. So we have a much more active king position now than with the king on g6. And here we don't mind that white can take a7, as after knight a7, as played in the game, we can take on e4. Yeah, white couldn't keep the pawn, of course. This king move is easily answered by the check. So white took on a7, we took on e4. And here we can see that our centralized king, we have much more room here compared to white. King is on e2 against stone e4. And we have the d pawn, which is super dangerous. In fact, here, if you calculate deep enough, you can see that those two pawns are already unstoppable. It is relatively easy now. White played knight to c8. It really does not matter what white plays. But here d3 was played, and it's a quite funny situation. If you look here, it's still absolutely important to pay attention what's going on. I mean, this sounds like something very normal, but you can still easily lose the game here. If you play knight e5,
checkmate.
That's very embarrassing. Or alternatively, checkmate. This checkmate. So still, you need to pay attention what the other side is doing. The way to win here, of course, is to start with the check. King d2. And now we need to focus on our passed pawns. These should, start marching as soon as possible. So king d4 is the right move. On d4 also, the king cannot easily be checked. And we have the e-pawn running now. White tried c5, desperation move. Was there something else? Yeah, well, we can look at knight takes b6. But after that, black wins easily with transferring a knight to e4. You don't even need the e-pawn. Let's say knight f2, knight a4, knight e4. Check. We're just in time to get this check in. King moves and knight takes. And now the h-pawn is the decider. White's knight is also totally offside and cannot help at all. If white plays knight d6 here, then knight e5 is a good answer. Yeah, we cover f7 and we get this idea in knight f3 check. Yeah, to gain more space and ultimately advance our pawns. White has really no counterplay. Yeah, he can give this check. But we just go here. Yeah, note that king f3 g3 is also very quickly coming, and the h-pawn then can march. The current situation on the queen side is that white takes quite a lot of time until there's any sort of dangerous pawn coming. Yeah, something like, let's say a4, king f3, c5, takes a5. Yeah, we have many pawns now. Knight c6, and we are stopping the whole thing. If white now is playing a7, the h-pawn is far too quick. Yeah, let's get back to the actual game. After king d4, as mentioned, Gligoric played c5, which was just taken. Knight d6 and knight e5. This is very similar to what we saw before in the other line. Yeah, black here is in total control, and after knight b5 will march to the king side. It's very comparable if we look at this. Going to f3, a4 takes, a5, h4, a6, knight c6, and we finally stop this lone source of counterplay to at the end win with the h-pawn. Yeah, very easy win now for black. This is a very instructive example of step-by-step improving your position without allowing any sort of counterplay. Smyslov was step-by-step exchanging pieces that were no help to him if we start from the very beginning. Yeah, black noticed that it is much easier to play with one rook, so he traded the rook. This allowed him to activate the king, get it to e7, which in turn makes the position more flexible for black. Note that you need to be on e7 for the with the king to later facilitate this knight move. By now there was a rook on d8, but these are all little parts of the puzzle. We don't need to rush things here. Very important endgame motto is, of course, don't rush, don't hurry. Yeah, very often it's not a matter of time what you need to execute, but of quality. Yeah, setting up the right kind of position, the right kind of improvement to push the opponent back. It's not about doing something super quickly, but to do the right things, execute it at the right time. Yeah, and here we step by step see how white is pushed back. We go back and just have a final look at this position. If white is not going for rook d3 for the trade, then he really will be facing this pawn roller. Let's say rook f3 just to complete the whole thing. If white is doing something like that, ultimately f5 will follow, and this means that e4 now is a spot that white cannot hold. Even if he, let's say, plays this, yeah, we don't take on e4. This would just worsen our pawn structure. We don't want a triple pawn. But of course, after rook f1, the much better way to play is knight to f6, which allows a capture with the knight, keeping the pawn structure healthy. Yeah, here white will lose e4, or he needs to take. And after the trade, we ultimately get what we wanted. Our pawn structure now has no double pawn, and 3 against 2 will be a very easy win. Black even can consider rook g4 or h4 to get two connected passed pawns. Yeah, so a good example how to realize your material advantage. Do it slowly, yeah, and yeah, think about possible counterplay. That's more important than just pushing pawns wildly. Think of a good setup and good trades that help your position. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.